Hello, hello, hello. I am the Linux Mensch. Arch Linux put out their brand new ISO on December the 1st, as usual, on the 1st of the month. And of course, this is only to be used for brand new installations. It's not to be used to update your system, because if you need to update your system, you just update it the normal way in the terminal. And when it came out, I used the automated installer to do a base installation off camera. And then I did a quick 3-minute video just to show you that it had worked, because the automated installer wasn't working several months ago. Then I did a video using that installation to do all my post installation changes, installing all my apps and applications, desktop environment, and window managers. Now I'm going to do a base installation. So, hey, I'm working backwards. What can I say? So today I'm going to do a manual install. I'm going to encrypt the drives. And one thing I'm going to do different is I'm going to add several kernels. So let's get to it. I have logged on to a virtual machine of Arch Linux with the December 1st ISO. And the first thing I'm going to do is change the font so you can read this. I'm going to do set font here dash 132B. And there we go. Let's clear the screen. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type in this command: timedate control set NTP true. Next thing I'm going to do is type in this command: curl dash O, and that's an O and not a 0, etc pacman d mir list, leave a space, https colon / archlinux.org / mir list / all and / and I'm going to hit enter. And if I typed it in right, it's going to download about 900 mirrors from around the whole world. Let's hit enter. And what I'm going to do is just type in set font. And so I just made the font smaller just so you can see the line. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but that's what the line looks like when it's on one line. And now what I'm going to do is let's get rid of that. And let's go back to the other font. There we go. Let's clear the screen. So that's the command. Let's just, let's not rush through this video. I guess this is going to end up being an hour video. Let's do set font tier dash 128 and for normal. Now let's clear the screen and let's put that command back up there. Okay, so now it's on one line. And it's a little bit larger so you can see it. That's the command. Okay, now let's clear that out. And let's go back to the larger font because I like it. Yeah, I'm going to do 132B. That's better. Next thing I'm going to do is type in this command: vim etc pacman d mir list. And you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to set numbers. There we go. Now let's go down to the bottom. So we can see there's 992 lines. And of course it's counting blank lines. So let's say, I don't know if there's 100 spaces. There's still 900 mirrors from all over the world, and they're all deactivated. So you're going to have to pick 1, 2, or 3. I would say pick 3 mirrors that are near your area where you live. Bring them to the top of the list. And you're going to take the number sign or the hashtag out to activate the line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in archlinux.org. I'm going to go to the wiki. I'm going to type in mirrors, and I'm going to click on this one, mirror status. And I'm going to click on this one, successfully syncing mirrors. And I'm going to click on country. So now it's organized it by country. I'm going to click it on again to bring the United States mirrors to the top, and I'm going to pick 2 United States mirrors. So we have, this is a mirror that I use, and actually there's 2 mirrors here that I use. Actually, there's quite a few mirrors that I use that I'm familiar with, but I'm going to pick 2. So I'm going to pick, and I always pick the ones with the S. I don't like for instance, this one. I'm not going to use this one because it doesn't have the S there. The S is for secure. And now a lot of the mirrors have 2 mirrors each. A lot of the mirrors will have one without the S and one with the S. So you can see them here, right? This one doesn't have an S and this one does. And the mirror score, so you want your mirror score to be as low as possible. So I tried to pick a mirror that's under 1. So here, like this mirror is 0.7. We have a 0.6, a 0.8, a 0.9. And I also like to pick a mirror that's 100% in sync. So these mirrors that are 97%, I'm not going to use it. Now, sometimes I do use this mirror because I do like the constant mirror. Today, for some reason, this morning, this mirror is not completely in sync, so I'm not going to use it. So I'm going to pick 2, and really you should pick 3 or 4. I like to pick 3, but for the purpose of saving time, I'm only going to do 2, I think. So we'll see. Let's see if we can get 3 mirrors. So I want to make sure they're in sync, 100% in sync, the one with the S, and I want to make sure they have a score below 1. Like look at these mirrors. It has a score of 3. That's no good. I don't want to pick a mirror with a high score. Now I went too high. So I want to go to successfully syncing mirrors. And of course, I'm in Canada, but I think the mirrors in the United States are faster than the Canadian mirrors. I used to use the Canadian mirrors a long time ago, but now I usually use the mirrors from the United States because they have better scores. Now also, there is a system called Reflector that if you install it, it will automatically pick mirrors that are close to you and mirrors that are in good condition, but I don't like it for 2 reasons. Number 1, I like to be in control, and I like to pick the mirror that I want to use. I don't like their automated system choosing a mirror for me. I like to have that control. Secondly, I tried using Reflector a couple times, and it picked mirrors that weren't so fast, and it picked mirrors that weren't in sync, according to this page. So I know, like on one of my videos, somebody wrote a comment, you should just use Reflector. It's a lot easier. Well, you know what? If you like Reflector and it works for you, use it. No judgment here, but I don't like it. So like I said, I used it. I tried it a couple times and it picked mirrors that weren't so good. So I don't use it, and I like to have that control. That's the point of Arch Linux. It's not to have everything automated. The point of Arch Linux is for you to build your own system and for you to be in control. Let's see, let's pick some mirrors. And I guess this is really going to be a long video. I'm going to have to chop up this video and cut it down. So I have the hacking and coffee mirror. Hacking and coffee, that's coffee, not coughing. It's 100%. And it's 0.7. Now the one without the S, hacking and coughing without the S, is a 0.6, but the S stands for secure. It means it's encrypting it when it's over the internet, so it's harder, maybe not impossible, but it's harder for a man in the middle to get involved. So I always pick the ones with the S, and the ones with the S are always slower than the ones without the S. So that's 0.7. That's a good score, and it's 100%. So I'm going to use hacking and coffee. Number 1, I'm going to use America package build with the S. It's 100%, and it's also 0.7 as my number 2. So I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to make this full screen. I'm going to do a search. So let's just go to the top, and let's do a search for hacking. So you can see here there's 2 hackings, right? There's the one without the S and the one with the S. So I'm going to pick the one with the S. I'm going to go to the top. I'm going to paste it in. I'm going to take the hashtag out or the number sign out. And that activated the mirror. And I'm going to go to the end. I'm going to leave a space. And another thing I should mention too is that you shouldn't be don't do a manual install of Arch Linux unless you know how to use Nano or Vim or NeoVim. You have to know how to use a text editor that works in the TTY, because if you don't, you won't be able to do your install. So of course, I'm not going to show you how to use Vim now. I use Vim, but you can use Nano or NeoVim or any text editor that works in the TTY. Anyways, I'm repeating myself. So now I'm going to do another search. And of course, I'm using Vim. And I'm going to go do, I'm going to do America package build and make sure I have one with the S. Let's delete it. Let's go to the top. Now you can delete it or copy it. Let's take out the number sign. Now we've activated it. So now we have 2 mirrors activated. That should be good enough. Usually in my install at home, the ones that I'm actually working in, I usually have 3 or 4 mirrors at the top there. But 2 should be good enough for our install. And when you're downloading files and stuff, it always picks the mirror at the top. So, of course, the hacking and coffee mirror is going to be first. Then the America package build. So now I'm going to save the file. I'm going to right click it. I'm going to do Vim, Etsy, Pacman, Conf. I'm just going to scan down here. I'm going to delete verbose package list. And what that does is when you're updating or downloading files, it puts them in columns rather than paragraph form. Now, that might not work during this install because the font is too large. So if the font is too large, it might just throw it into paragraph form anyways. And the next one is the most important. I'm going to activate this line, parallel downloads. This is going to make the downloads a bit faster because it's going to do 5 parallel downloads at a time. I'm going to activate it. Now this file, we're going to save it. Now when we're finished the install, that is when we're finished our base install, we're going to have to go back and redo this file. The mirror file, we won't have to redo the mirror file after our install because the changes we made in the mirror file will automatically be transferred over to our base installation. Automatically, you won't have to do anything. But this file doesn't. So when the base installation is finished, this file will revert back to default. So if you want to have verbose package list and parallel downloads activated, you're going to have to, after your base installation, you have to go back and fix this one, but you won't have to go back and fix your mirror one unless you want to do a mirror change. Okay? I think that's very clear. So let's save the file. And I'm taking my time, so this is going to be like an hour video, I think. I'm really going to try to chop it down if I can. And I'm already at 20 minutes and I haven't hardly done anything yet. Let's clear the screen. Now we got to sync. Whenever you do a change to the mirrors, you have to sync it. So let's do, oh, I almost did sudo. Let's do Pacman, Pacman, capital SYY. So now I'm just syncing my mirrors and that's done. So now I'm going to format my disks. And to format the disk, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller because it works better. I use CF disk, but this font is a bit too large. So I'm going to do set, oops. I'm going to do set font tier -128. I just make it a little bit smaller. And I'm going to do CF disk. And I'm going to choose DOS. And you can see I have a 40 gig hard drive. Well, I can't use my mouse, but if you look up there, there's a 40 gig hard drive. So I'm going to click on new. What I'm going to do different this time, because I'm installing many kernels or several kernels, normally I make a partition for the boot drive. I make it 200 megabytes. I'm going to make this 1 gig. I know most people don't do this, and some people might say it's a waste, but if your boot drive is too small, you can't have too many kernels in it. So I'm going to make it, like I said, normally I just do 200 capital M for my boot partition. I called it a drive. It's actually a partition. I'm partitioning my hard drive. So normally, like I said, I make my boot partition 200 megabytes, but I'm going to make it 1 gig. 1 capital G. Okay, I'm going to click on primary. And also what I'm going to do is get rid of my face for this because my face gets in the way. So now I'm going to use my arrows and I'm going to go to bootable. I'm going to make this 1 gig partition bootable. Now you can see right there, there's an asterisk under the word boot beside this first partition. That means it worked. It's going to be bootable. Next, I'm going to go use my arrow keys to go to write. I'm going to click on write and I'm going to type in yes. Hit enter. Now I'm going to go use my arrow keys. Whoops, sorry. And go down to the free space. So now I have 39 gigs of free space. Right? I have 1 gig for my boot partition, and I have 39 gigs of free space. I'm going to click on new. It says 39 gig, so I'm going to hit enter. Click on primary. I'm going to make this bootable as well. It's bootable, and you can see the asterisk is underneath it, right? Under both, or beside both. And then I'm going to do use my arrow keys and go to write. I'm going to write it. I'm going to type in yes. So now it's written it, and I'm going to quit. Now I'm going to clear the screen, and you can see right here it says syncing disks. Right above root, syncing disks. Now I'm going to clear the screen, and I'm going to bring my face back. Ha! I'm back. And I'm going to change the font again. I'm going to go tier-132. Oops. It's set font tier-132B. And I'm going to clear the screen. So now I'm going to do LSBLK just to take a look at my partitions. So we can see VDA, I have VDA1 and VDA2. VDA1 is 1 gig and VDA2 is 39 gig. Okay, so now I'm going to do encrypt setup. I did that wrong. -Y -B Lux format. Now notice the format, you have to make it a capital F. Lux format is one word, but with the capital F, or it won't work. Why? I don't know. /dev/ and I'm going to do VDA2, right? VDA2, which is my 39 gig partition. I'm going to hit enter. Warning, this will overwrite data on VDA2 irrevocably. Can't pronounce that. Are you sure? Type yes in capital letters. Well, this is a virtual drive and it's a brand new virtual machine, so I'm not going to be erasing anything. But if you were doing this on bare metal, it's just warning you you're going to be erasing your whatever is in there. You're going to be erasing the drive or the partition. So we're going to be erasing whatever is in VDA2, which is empty anyways. Anyways, are you sure? Type yes in capital letters. So I'm going to put my cap locks on. I'm going to type in yes. And I'm going to hit enter. Now it's asking me for a passphrase. Now, before you put your passphrase in, you have to remember that your caps locks are on. Now, you can make a capital password in capitals, but then you're going to have to remember that your password is in caps, and every time you log into your system, or every time you log into your system, you want to decrypt the drive, you're going to have to make sure your caps are on. Now, this is another thing. This password, after your installation is done, you can change the password. You can change it in the terminal, or you can change it with a GNOME GUI application. Even though you may not be installing the GNOME desktop, you don't have to install the GNOME desktop. You can have a window manager, the awesome window manager, Qtile window manager, the Cinnamon desktop, whatever window manager or desktop you want. But there is a GNOME utility that you can download, and that GNOME utility is part of my auto install script, my post installation auto install script. So you can use that GNOME utility to change your password, or you don't have to. You can just change your password in the terminal. Even if you haven't done a post installation. So if you just have a base installation with no window managers, no desktop environments or nothing, you can still change your encryption password in the terminal or in the TTY if you know what it is. The problem is that if you forget your password, that's it. There's nothing you can do. If you forget your password, you won't be able to get into your installation. You will lose everything unless you have it backed up. So whether you're changing the password in the terminal or the TTY or a GNOME utility or some other utility, GUI utility in your desktop environment, doesn't matter. If you forget your password, that's it. You're toast. You'll have to just do a fresh installation and you'll lose whatever isn't backed up. Anyways, I've over-explained myself like I always do. So the point is, it's asking us to put a password in. So I have to remember that my cap locks were on because we had to type in yes in capitals. So now I'm going to take my cap lock off because I don't want my password to be in caps. So now my cap lock is off and I'm going to type in a password. Now it's asking me to retype it. So I'm going to retype it again. And it's done. So now I'm going to open the drive and give it a name. So I'm going to do crypt setup, leave a space, open, leave a space, dev, BDA2, and you're going to give it a name. Now you can give it whatever name you want, any name you want. So, but you're going to have to use this name later on. And what should I call it? I'm going to call it my drive. My drive. You can call it anything. Okay, so now I'm going to hit enter. Now enter passphrase for my drive. So now you have to enter the passphrase that you just made a moment ago. So I'm going to enter it in. And now that drive is opened. So now I'm going to make a file system for that drive. So I'm going to do mkfs.ext4. I always do ext4 /dev/mapper/ and the name you gave it. Well, I gave it my drive. So my drive. Let's hit enter. And now it's creating a file system for that partition. Let's clear the screen. Now let's do another LSBLK. So we see VDA2 is now called my drive, and it's a crypt drive. You can see right there, it's crypt. Now we're going to make a file system for VDA1, which is a 1 gig partition, which is going to be my boot partition. Type in this command, mkfs ext4. I'm going to go really slow. /dev/BDA1. So we're making a file system for our boot partition. And that's done. That was fast. Wow. So now I'm going to clear the screen. Let's lsblk. And there we have it. I'm going to mount my main partition. So I'm going to type in mount /dev mapper my drive. I could have given it a better name, I guess. But anyways, doesn't matter. And /mnt. Now I'm going to clear the screen. I'm going to make dir. I'm making a directory for my boot partition. So make dir, make mkdir/mnt/boot. Now I'm going to mount my boot drive. So I'm going to type in mount /dev BDA1 space /mnt/boot. Now I'm going to clear the screen. I'm going to do another LSBLK. We're going to be doing LSBLK a lot. Now we can see VDA1, it's a 1 gig partition and it's mounted to boot. And VDA2 has the name that I gave it, my drive. You can give it any name you want. And it's a 39 gig partition, and it's crypt, and it's mounted to /mount. Okay, so now I'm going to install some base files. So I'm going to type in pack strap space mnt space base devel Linux dash firmware vim get terminus dash font. And I don't know how much room I have. Maybe I should have given it more than a gig. My boot partition. I don't know how much room I have for kernels with a 1 gig partition. I probably should have given it larger, but hey, what kernel should I install? So I'm going to install Linux LTS, Linux hardened, Linux then kernel, and let's do Linux RT-LTS. Let's see, I don't know if I have room for 4 kernels, and I don't know if I have room for 5. There's also the stable kernel, which a lot of people use. And there's a real-time stable kernel as well. Okay, let's try these kernels. So let's hit enter, and there was an error. Oh, and I know what my error was. I mistyped something. This base devel has to have a dash in it. Let's go back. Now let's try it. There we go. And we're installing our base packages. This is probably going to take a minute or two, so I'll pause the video and come back. If you go to the Arch Linux wiki and type in kernel, it's going to bring you to this page. So the Arch Linux has 6 officially supported kernels. They have stable, hardened, long-term support, real-time kernel, which is split into 2 types, Linux real-time and Linux real-time LTS, and the Zen kernel. So there's 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kernels. Now the Linux real-time kernel is based on the stable, but a lot of the bloat is taken out of the kernel. The Linux real-time LTS, it's based on this one here, this long-term support kernel, by taking out some of the bloat. And of course, like I said, there's the hardened, there's the Zen kernel, and so forth. Now, so there's 6 officially supported kernels here. Now, you can get a kernel from the AUR, but I don't recommend it. Number 1, the Arch devs take no responsibility for packages that are downloaded and installed from the AUR. And the kernel being something that's so important, it runs your system. I would only install kernels from the officially supported kernels of the Arch Linux repository. That's number 1. Number 2, downloading a kernel from the official repository only takes a couple seconds. Downloading and installing a kernel from the AUR could take hours because it has to compile it. So that's another reason. So there's 2 reasons why I would never install a kernel from the AUR, but if you want to do that, if you're an advanced user, you can do that. And if you're an advanced user, you're probably not watching my video. But anyways, I would stick with these ones. So this is where I got the kernel list from. We're ready to go on to the next step. So now I'm going to clear the screen. And I can type in Genfstab mnt etc fstab. And I'm going to type in arch Chroot /mnt. So now I've Chrooted into my system, my very small base system. And now it's time to pick a zone information. So if you don't know what your zone information is, you could do this. ls/usr, usr/share/zone info. Okay, now we have all our countries. So now I'm going to type in ls/user share zone info /Canada. Hit enter. And now it gives you the regions. So now I'm going to use my up arrow back, and I'm going to type in Eastern because I'm in the Eastern time zone. Eastern, like that. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, now of course this is easier if you know what your zone is, you can just type it in and do it. But if you don't know, this is how you would search for it. So now I'm going to type in ln space dash sf slash user share zone info slash Canada with a capital slash Eastern with a capital, leave a space, etc local time. Now, if you mess this up, when you're finished your installation, your time will be off. But this can be fixed after the fact. Even there's been times when I've been doing this and I messed it up and I didn't realize I messed it up. And I was doing my post installation, you know, putting in a window manager and a desktop environment and apps and so forth. And after the fact, I realized I messed it up. My time was off, but I fixed it. You can fix this. It is not set in stone. Now I'm going to clear the screen. I'm going to type in vim etc locale period gen, and I'm going to do a search for English Canada. So here we are, we're in English Canada. I'm going to uncomment that one, and I'm going to uncomment that one, so I'm activating these two lines for Canada. I'm going to save the file, and I'm going to clear the screen. Now I'm going to type in this command, locale gen. So it's generating my locale, and it says generation is complete. So now I'm going to type in this command, vim. Let's just clear the screen again. Vim etc locale conf. And I'm going to type in this command, capitals. And this command, you have to do it exactly as it is, except for your particular region where you live. But it has to be the same, like with capitals and the underscore and the letters that are small and large and so forth. Okay, so language equals English. English has to be in small, underscore, then back into capitals, CA, period, UTF-8. So of course yours is going to be a little different depending on where you live, but you have to follow that format. Why? I have no idea. Let's do shift, right? I gotta take my caps off now to save this. And it looks good. And this can be fixed after the fact as well. Let's clear the screen. Now we're going to create a host name, vim etc host name. And you can give it whatever name you want. And this is not carved in stone. This can be changed after the fact. Let's just call it Arch. Let's save it. Clear the screen. Now we're going to give root a password. PASSWD root. And I'm going to give root a password. I'm going to retype it. So now root has a password and it's telling you it was successful. So now I'm going to install Network Manager and Grub. Hit enter. And it's installing Network Manager and Grub. And that's done. Let's clear the screen. That was fast. Now I'm going to make it so Network Manager is turned on automatically every time we boot. So I'm going to type in system control enable Network Manager. Okay, so number one, Network Manager has to be one word. And number two, the N in Network Manager must be capitalized, and the M for manager must be capitalized, or the command won't work. Why? Who knows? It is what it is. Let's hit enter. And that's done. Let's clear the screen. Now we're going to type in grub dash install dev vda. Hit enter. And it's installing Grub. Okay, so now it's telling you the installation for Grub. The installation was, our installation is not finished yet. We got quite a bit way to go. But the installation was finished. Grub, it installed Grub, it's finished, and no error reported. So that's good. Let's clear the screen. Now we're going to make Grub. I'm going to type in this command, grub dash mkconfig dash o, and that's an O and not a 0, slash boot slash grub dot cfg. Now, earlier on in the video, I installed 4 kernels. Now, if my boot partition is not large enough for those 4 kernels, we're going to run into a problem with this command. And if we do, it's easy to fix because I can uninstall 1 or 2 of the kernels. So let's see if this works. Let's hit enter. And it's done. Looks like we had room. I don't think I would have had room for 5 kernels or 6 kernels. I think to do 5 or 6 kernels, you have to do a larger boot partition. Anyways, it looks like it worked. It says done. Let's clear the screen. Let's go on to the next step. I'm going to do vim etc mkinitcpio period conf. I'm going to hit enter. So I'm going to scan down right here to this line here that's activated, because of course all the lines that have the number sign or that hashtag, they're deactivated lines. And I'm just going to use my arrows to go. And between the word block and file system, I'm going to type in encrypt and leave a space. And I'm going to save the file. And you know what? I'm going to change the font. Okay, let's do this. Set font here dash 128N. Let's do that. Make it a little smaller. And I'm going to go back into that file. So there, that's what the file should look like. We're putting the word encrypt in between block and file system. And you have to make sure it's spelled right. Okay, let's get out of there. Let's clear the screen. Let's make it back to large font here. Set font tier dash 132B. Okay. Let's clear the screen. Now we're going to type in this command mkinitcpio space slash capital P. Okay, so you have to make sure it's a capital P. Why? I don't know. Now that part took about 5 minutes. It took a lot longer than it normally does because I have 4 kernels installed on the system. If you only had 1 kernel installed, it only takes like 30 seconds. Maybe a minute. But anyways, it took about 5 minutes, so I paused the video. Anyways, let's clear the screen. I'm going to type in this command, blkid t space -8 uuid. And we're doing this because we have to copy something. And of course, copy and paste doesn't work the way it normally does because we're in the TTY. And I'm going to ls it. And we can see here, over there, we have a file called uuid. I'm going to vim into it, vim uuid. And I'm going to go down to, I went down too far. I'm going down to the line. If you can see here, where it says crypto locks and has locks in capital letters, I'm going to yank it. So I'm going to do YY. And I'm going to get out of here. And I'm going to vim. Oh, let's clear the screen. I'm going to vim into etc default / grub. And I'm going to go down. And I'm going to go between these 2 lines. Now this probably is the hardest part of this install. And if you don't do it right, If you mess it up, you won't be able to boot into your system, and you're going to have to log on to your base install with a live ISO and fix it. And it can be, if you do mess this up, it can be fixed. Maybe. So you have to be very careful with this. And what I'm going to do is paste that line in. And you know what? Let's just go there. I'm going to paste it in. Okay. Now this is the part where you're going to be really careful. Let's go to the end of the line. And let's just start deleting part of the line very slowly and carefully. Don't rush this. Take your time. Just go nice and slow. Okay. Now after the 7, we're going to put a colon. We're going to type in Encrypt and the name of your disk. So mine is called, sorry, we're going to type Encrypt and the name of your drive, and it's going to be one word. So the name of my partition was my drive. So you're going to have to remember or be aware of what you named your partition, your encrypted partition. So I called it my drive. You could have called it anything you want. I called it my drive. So you're going to put crypt, you're going to put colon, crypt, and the name, and it's going to be one word. Then you're going to leave a space, and you're going to put the name of your drive again, or the name of your partition, right? You're going to put the name of your partition again. Mine happens to be called my drive. And you're going to put an equal sign. You're going to put slash dev slash mapper slash, and you're going to put your name again, the name of your partition again, my drive, and like that. Okay, you're putting it in 3 times. So you're putting in, after the colon, you're putting crypt and the name, which is my, I called it my drive, space, the name again, equals slash dev slash mapper slash, and the name again. So you're typing your name in. The name of your partition is being typed in 3 times. This has to be perfect. So we've got to go back up now because we're not finished the line yet. And I'm going to go right here and very slowly again erase some of this other stuff. And it's going to be Linux equals, and I'm going to delete that, and it's going to be Linux equals crypt device equals capital UUID equals. Okay, so it should look like that. Now what I'm going to do is save it, and I'm going to do set font tier dash 130 128 N for normal, and I'm going to go back in there again, and I'm just looking at it to make sure it's good. Let's get out of there. Let's set font to be normal. So I know that's really small, but that's what the line should look like. Let's get out of there. And let's do set font tier dash 132 B. So now we have to make Grub again. So I'm going to do Grub dash Mkinitcpio dash O, and that's an O and not a 0, space slash boot slash grub slash grub period CFG. And let's make Grub, and it's done. What I want to do is make this large font permanent, automatic when I boot into the system. So I am going to do this. I'm going to do vim etc v console conf, and I'm going to type in capitals font equals, and I'm going to take my caps off, here dash 132 B, and I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to save the file. Now I'm going to clear the screen. I'm going to type in exit. I'm going to type in umount. Now it's umount. It's not unmount. It's umount. There's no N in there. Umount. -r/mnt. This is just to make sure your drive is not connected, even though we exited it. And now I'm going to reboot. So let's reboot. And hopefully I can get into the system. Now, we have, when you get to the screen, you have to automatically hit your arrow buttons, and let's make that full screen. Otherwise, so we installed 4 kernels. So whatever kernel happens to be at the top of the list, that's the one that is automatically going to go into. So when you're booting into the system, you have 3 seconds to hit your arrow buttons, or else it's going to boot into the first kernel that's at the top of the list. So when you hit the arrow buttons, it stops it. So now it's frozen. You can take as much time as you want. So we're going to go use the arrow buttons and go into Advanced Options. So we see we have all these kernels here now. So the first one is the Zen kernel. So that's the one it's going to automatically boot into whenever we're booting up, unless you use that 3-second interval to hit your arrow button to stop it from booting, and then you go into Advanced, and then you can pick the kernel you want. So we have the Zen kernel, the real-time long-term support kernel, the regular long-term support kernel, and Linux hardened. I didn't install the stable kernel, and there was another kernel I didn't install. Oh, I didn't install the real-time stable kernel. And I was going to install the stable kernel, but I didn't, because I was wondering if the 1 gig boot partition was going to be large enough. Because before I had a smaller partition and I tried to install a bunch of kernels and it installed them, but when I went to make Grub, I couldn't make Grub. I was getting an error message. So anyways, there's 4 kernels here. And which one should I boot into? Let's boot into, I'm going to boot into the real-time long-term support kernel. Let's hit enter. And now it's gone to the decryption part. Now, the last thing I did before we rebooted was that I changed something in the file system so that the TTY font will always be large. And I'm pretty sure it worked. We'll find out when I boot in. But it doesn't work for the part where you're decrypting your drive. So the part where you have to put the password in to decrypt the drive, that is always going to be small font. There might be a way to change that. If there is, I don't know how to do it. So once we get to the login screen, then the font should be large. Let's see if it worked. So I'm going to put my password in to decrypt the drive, and it's working, I can tell. And there it is. And look at the large font worked. So now my TTY font is always automatically going to be large font. But like I said, it doesn't work for the part where you're decrypting the drive. Now, of course, if you didn't do encryption, if you didn't encrypt your drive, then when you boot in, it's automatically going to come to this screen. So it's large font, so we can see at the top we have the Arch Linux kernel real-time, right? We have the real-time long-term support kernel, and we're in TTY1. And it's asking for a login. Now, I haven't made a user yet, so Mensch doesn't exist. Even though I'm here, Mensch doesn't exist. All we have is root. So we're going to type in root. And I'm going to put my root password in. And now we're in root. And should I install Htop? Let's install Htop. Oh, and there's one more thing. I told you one file we have to fix. So if you go vim, etc, pacman d mirror list, hit enter. So earlier in the video, I told you that the mirror list, when you change the mirror list at the beginning, that will be carried over into your installation. So we can see we have all the mirrors from all over the world, right? Let's set numbers. Let's go down to the bottom. We have our 900 mirrors that we copied at the beginning of the video. Let's go to the top. And they're all deactivated. And our 2 mirrors are at the top that we copied from the bottom to the top. So we have hacking and coffee and America package build. So that carried over, like I said it would. Well, let's just quit. We didn't make any changes. Now let's clear the screen. The only default file that you change that's going to be carried over is that from the ISO. So on the ISO, we changed this file, vim etc pacman conf. We changed this file on the ISO, but it didn't copy it over. It reverted to the default. So we go into here. Oops, and I went down too far. See this? Remember we changed this? We activated the verbose package list and the parallel downloads. Let's reactivate it and save the file. So the mirror file we changed on the ISO. It copied it over, but that file we also changed it on the ISO, this particular file here, but it didn't copy it over. Anyways, I just thought I'd let you know. So now it's fixed. You only have to fix this again, and that's it. That's the last time you have to fix it. Let's Control L. And you know what? I'm going to make a user, and then I'm going to close the video. I'm not going to do a complete install because it's going to be a 2-hour video. Let's do user add -m mensch. Let's do mensch password mensch. Let's put mensch's password in. Let's retype it, and I'm going to make mensch part of the sudo group. Mensch, oops, vim etc sudoers root. Oh, there it is. Okay, let's copy it, paste it, mensch. Let's save it. Oh, didn't do it right. Let's save it. And what else do I want to do? No, I'm going to, oh, you know what I want to do? Let's exit out of there. Let's log in as mensch. Let's put his password in. Let's see if it works. Sudo, I'm going to install Htop man -s. I'm going to install Htop and Neofetch. Put mensch's password in. And I'm just going to reboot just to give it a fresh. Let's do another fresh reboot. And then I'm going to close the video. Oh, you got to stop that. Let's log back into that same kernel. I like this kernel because it's really light. And we're at the decrypt screen. So let's put my decryption password in, or my password to decrypt, and it should go to large font. And it did. Let's log in as mensch. Put my password in. Clear the screen. Let's do an Htop. And we're running at 77 megabytes. So we gave it. I gave this virtual machine 4 processors, 4 gigs of RAM, 0 swap, and it's running at 77 megabytes. Oh, went up to 76 megabytes, 0.9. Isn't that amazing? Let's quit out of there and let's do a Neofetch. Neofetch. And there we are, 84 megas of RAM. So now, of course, we have to do post installation, which I'm not going to do because I did that the other day. Of course, you have to install all the apps and the desktop environment and the window managers that you want. You can do that your own, or you can use my install script or watch my last video. And that's it. Wow, that was a long video. Right now, it's an hour and a half, but I haven't edited yet. Hopefully I can get it down to an hour. But I took my time to properly explain things and to do, I've had quite a few people tell me they like the fact that I take my time. So I took my time. I did a base installation of Arch Linux the manual way. I encrypted the drive and I installed 4 kernels. And I made it so that the TTY font will be large when you log in. And I made a user for myself. I gave myself a password and sudo privileges, and I installed Htop and Neofetch. But other than that, it's still a base install. And if you want to learn how to do a complete install, you can watch my last video to see my post installation and how I do it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like it and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. Until next time, I am the Linux Mensch.